What's up, guys? Welcome back to our third episode of the Fireside Chat with all these lovely gentlemen, man, on their own YouTube channels, including this one. We want to welcome a couple new friends to this week's episode. We have Travis, who's the XRP Pirate, and awesome name, dude. And we have Nabil. So Travis is in the Bay Area with me, actually, and Nabil's in Montreal. And we're going to get into this whole discussion on why XRP has a future. And before we get into that, though, how's everyone doing?
Good, very good.
Awesome, cool. So why don't we just start off with the charts?
Jump in.
Yeah, let's jump in. Go ahead, and Chris, you take over and tell us what's going on. We saw a little bounce this morning.
Okay, cool. Let's let me screen share really fast.
Go for it.
How's the weather in Mexico, man?
What's that?
How's the weather in Mexico, Chris?
Oh, it's pretty nice. It's pretty nice. Can't complain.
Yeah, a lot nicer than Canada right now.
It must be cold as hell up there in Canada.
Dude, I bet.
You know what? Today and yesterday ain't that bad, but I mean the snow's melted, but no, we're gonna get hit soon.
All right, guys. This is Bitcoin here on the daily time frame. As you guys can see, we've been pretty much grinding down for the past two weeks, 15, 16 days, something like that. This exponential moving average has been pushing down the price. But at the same time, we've been forming this descending wedge, which is typically a bullish formation. So the way you can play this is put your stop at the lower low, and then put a stop buy just above and try to get the breakout. Now this bounce is pretty nice, increasing volume, which is good. RSI is bouncing back, and then we have a MACD cross. So let me pull that up. Yeah, we have a MACD cross, so it's a good sign. The only thing that worries me is, again, these exponential moving averages. So we would have to close above this 12 exponential moving average in order to see some follow through. Right above that, we have resistance here at 36.30. So ideally, we blast through that. We're going to probably reject from this exponential moving average, have a little moment of consolidation, and then another leg up would be the ideal pattern here. The TD sequential, this green one, nice price flip. So we'll see tomorrow if we can close and then open above it. It'll give us a green too, which is a nice bullish sign. On lower time frame here, this is a 4 hour. What's notable is the volume. The volume has been the highest since, let's see, this was the 7th. So the past 10 days, it's been the highest in the last 10 days, which is good. And also in lower time frames, we're above all exponential moving averages, which is also a good sign. Now, here we have what can potentially be a bull cross of the moving averages, which is a short-term, good sign. Again, in perspective, here's the weekly. So the weekly, we're still obviously in a bearish trend. So let's see, 5-minute time frame. This 5-minute time frame, it's healthy consolidation. We're holding with the exponential moving averages, which is decent. If we lose those, what I would hate to see is, the infamous Bart Simpson pattern where you consolidate and then all of a sudden we see a leg down. So as long as these hold, this is nice and healthy. Volume's declining, which is pretty much what happens when there's consolidation. So all in all, I think short term I'm quite bullish. I would play these short term moves. Yeah, that's all I have here for Bitcoin. Obviously, let's look at XRP since that's the topic of debate.
Well, can I ask you something?
Sure, go
This is
ahead.
to me. When you say short term, what time frame are you talking about? Because you're a day trader, and some people maybe a lot of people on our calls or that watch this show may not be day traders, right? So
Okay, cool.
what's like, what do you mean by short term? And then what type of price forecast based on what you see in the charts you see with Bitcoin, at least in the next 7 days?
Okay, so yeah, I mean, just for clarity, I am a day trader, and I basically my time frames are 15 minutes and under. So to get perspective on the macro time frames, like here's the daily, for example. This exponential moving average is the hurdle that we have to hop in order to get us to the next exponential moving average. So in the next 2-3 days, if we can hop over this resistance, we can see 3,800. It's I mean, it would take a lot of volume for us to just blast through it. So what I would suggest is, or what I would basically what I'm seeing is hitting this exponential moving average, then consolidating back down and another leg up. So the next resistance here is, oh, my bad. 44.23 would be the next resistance if we cross this exponential moving average. So in the next 4 or 5 days, this would be kind of the short term that I'm talking about, which is a decent move. Like you're talking about 27% if we get up there in the next week.
Gotcha.
Obviously, we're all really looking at, if we look at the weekly time frame for people that are seeing kind of a macro scale here, what we're all really looking for is that dead cat bounce back to 6,000, which will happen. I mean, my time frame, I'm not very clear. It's gonna, I mean, here on the TD sequential, we have a 6 of 9, so potentially we can see another 2-3 weeks of downside. But at this point, I would like to see a dead cat bounce now, and then we can see 47, and then potentially up to 50, 5,800, 6,000 in the next month, maybe leading up to Q1. So that's kind of a longer term perspective of the markets at the moment.
Do you see you said next couple of weeks we could see even more downside? Is it possible? What's the probability we could break 2,800? Because I know we talked about that last time, that resistance zone being 2,800, and I think you said you could see a bounce off of that 2,800,
right,
3,000.
right, just between the 2,800 and 3,000. So I'm zooming out here on the daily, and here is this support right here is the 3,000. The 3,000 support is if you look at the volume profile, you'll see a lot of support in this. So we could break this, but at this point right now, this bounce is pretty significant that I would like to see a bounce back to 6,000, and then on the second leg down, I would see a break of 3,000. So, I mean, we've been down for, when was this?
Like a month and
yeah, a month and something. So, I mean, usually markets, I mean, they don't drop so. I mean, they obviously they can continue dropping, but right now, what would be healthy would be a bounce back to these resistant levels, and then we can see another leg down. But as I'm seeing it this second, volume is increasing, RSI is bouncing. There's a MACD bull cross, this price flip with an engulfing candle, which is decent. You don't see any wick, you don't see any resistance pushing the price down. So short term, I'm bullish. I will confirm that tomorrow. If we see a 2 above a green one, then I'm bullish for sure. I'll enter a position, and then targets would be, I would start scaling out at this exponential moving average all the way up to this resistance point here at 44.23. If we break 44.23, then I'm fairly confident we're going back up to 5,800, 6,000. That would be the dead head bounce.
Got it. And then what's the time frame you see it possibly breaking towards or hitting that 4,400 resistance? Like in the next month? You probably already said this, I just forgot, but in the next month, or what's your time frame based on what you see in the charts?
Well, with the volume increasing here, we're bouncing off oversold territory. I mean, this could happen maybe by our next call, by next week. We can see if at least this resistance was touched at 3,800. Maybe we'll see a bounce to 3,800, a couple of days of consolidation and another leg up. That would be ideal, and that can happen probably within the next 7 days.
I got you. Well, Christmas is coming up, so maybe this is a Christmas rally. Who knows?
I hope so, man. I hope so for everyone's sake, right?
Yeah, definitely. Cool.
Let me pull up Ripple here. Ripple's interesting because it ran up so fast that now there's like limited support levels. This here was a support level that needed to hold. Otherwise, the next support levels were down here. So that's a significant drop. If you guys, actually, let me take the magnet off here because that's like a 30% drop. And that's, I mean, this is a very nice short play because again, the support levels are they're so far apart that the risk reward is there. But what I mentioned last time, again, Bitcoin leads these markets. So we saw a bounce with Bitcoin and we're seeing a bounce here with Ripple. Again, another price flip here on this green candle.
Right.
This actually, it has better follow through than Bitcoin I'm seeing because it passed through this EMA. So I don't know, for the past, I don't know, I think it was a month ago that XRP was actually all of this XRP was leading the markets with these moves here. So maybe we can see that happening where, you know, Bitcoin has momentum, but XRP just has more follow through and we can just see this. I mean, tomorrow we'll see this green 2 opens above this green 1, and then from the looks of it, though, I mean, if you saw Bitcoin, we were kind of holding that exponential moving average. Now this kind of blasted through it. This would need to close above it, and then the probability of it going to this exponential moving average and this resistance here. Well, actually, this isn't resistance. This is resistance. 40 cents can be the next target in the next same time frame, 7 days, 1 week, I'd say.
Gotcha.
Yeah, all lower time frames. You got an EMA bull cross here. Volume is notable. These exponential moving averages are basically acting as supports. We're grinding just above them, which is nice. Yeah, I mean, these look good. Short term, they look good. Yeah, that's XRP and Bitcoin. Do you guys want me to try anything else, or should we just get on with the discussion?
We should get on.
Let's do it. Okay, cool.
All right, guys.
For anyone watching this video, just make sure you guys click the like button and leave a comment below and join the discussion. But yeah, welcome to the call, guys. The XRP guys.
Yes, guys.
So what's going on?
So yeah, I posted a story on the Wolf of Bitcoin's Instagram account purposely to get some educated reactions to what I said. And what I posted was XRP is a shit coin, change my mind. And I got a ton of replies from people on both sides. But Nabil here and Travis here actually come back at me with some like really educated answers and sent me a few links that I've already researched myself as well. So I was like, okay, these guys have done the research too. They know what they're talking about. So yeah, I invited them on the show. I thought it would be a good discussion. Everyone here's got some opinions on Ripple and XRP. Some may differ from others. So yeah, let's talk about it. I mean, me, from where I stand, I do understand what Ripple's doing as a company and like the kind of strategic business moves they're making with these financial institutions. But I'm just really on the fence with the XRP token as such, because, correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I believe or the research I've done, when it comes to XRapid, they can use the XRP token, but there's also a chance that they don't need to use the XRP token. And like the clients have a choice in that, whether they want to use XRP or not. Am I correct on that, or am I wrong?
So go ahead.
Go ahead, please.
Okay, sure. So from what I've seen, I haven't really seen anything from Ripple regarding that. I haven't seen it really come. Like, I've seen what you're talking about, but what I've seen that on is more of like forum platforms where people are just kind of like making assertions. But I could be completely wrong, and that could be the case where they can choose to not use the XRP token. But my main rationalization when I've been confronted with that idea has basically been that in order to do that, they would need another ecosystem, basically. XRP has been around since, like, I think it was created maybe around like 2000, I don't know, early 2000s, maybe after 2008, maybe 2003, 2004. Yeah, I thought it was like 2003, but yeah, I guess so, 2004. So, I mean, it's been around for a long time. And I just don't see why they would do that necessarily. XRP is already on these exchanges. That's where the liquidity is sourced for XRapid, is from the exchanges. So in order to do that, they would need to introduce a whole new token and basically, all that stuff, which why would they do, like, and like I hear the people saying, well, like, why would they want to make all these underlings rich or whatever? But the amount of money that, people like myself or any other retail investors typically not, gonna make or break the global elite infrastructure or whatever, if that's like the theory. So basically I would think they would need to come out with a new token, and I don't know why they wouldn't use XRP, because it's already there and works great. So
if I may add to it, one of the biggest misconceptions on Ripple is, well, they won't use XRP, and I've researched it myself a lot since I'm an investor in it. And onto the Ripple network, well, you have all these other banks that are basically joining this network. They're already purchasing in Ripple. They're buying XRP because they'll need those tokens to actually fill their orders and whatever transaction they make amongst themselves. Now, imagine if Ripple would say, well, we're not using it anymore, but they've already purchased it in. And Ripple is partnership dependent. Their network is based on all these partnerships they have. And from the lawsuit that they had with the R3 lawsuit, that confirms that their partners actually buy in the XRP token. Now, out of us, pardon me, I forgot your name. The XRP Pirate said, if you just move over and say, we're not going to use it anymore, well, you lose a lot of trust. And what's different between Ripple and Bitcoin, if I may say, Ripple is a business-oriented company. They want to profit from this blockchain that they did. So for them to say we're not going to use XRP anymore is not efficient. It's not a financial correct move. It's not their financial interest. So I don't see them going to another token or using something else.
Okay, well, real quick, why don't you guys introduce yourselves so people get to know who you guys are? So we have Travis and Nabil. I know you guys introduced yourselves to us before the call, but the audience doesn't know you guys. So, whoever wants to start first, tell us a little bit about your background and how you got into the crypto space and how you got to, being a big XRP supporter.
Sure. I'll go again. First, so basically, I've been, since just as a kid, I was interested in the conspiracy YouTube videos. I started with like Alex Jones or something like that. Okay. So I really started with interest after like the 2008 crisis and stuff like that, and just like an interest in global politics, et cetera, whatever, macroeconomics, all that type of thing. You know, there's always people trying to predict the next crash. So I was interested in that, did a lot of research regarding that. And for a long time, I was just trying to understand just so I could better prepare myself. You know what I mean? Just like have as much knowledge on like what's going on and why it's happening and what's the real story. You know, like it's not, I don't think it's going to be anarchy and like, you know, like crazy martial law or whatever, you know, all that stuff. You know, just coming to understand that. So that's really, so, and then I came to know Bitcoin through that whole sphere, because that's where crypto really started, was with these libertarian anarchist type of guys. And so started understanding Bitcoin. Knew about Bitcoin for a while, but I was more on the fence of like shit hitting the fan. I was like, oh, I need to have silver instead of Bitcoin. So I put my money in silver. If I put my money that I put in silver back then in Bitcoin, would have been a different story. But you know, so I've known about it for a while, and then just it went crazy last year. I was on Instagram doing a little thing on there, and came into contact with some people that are really interested in Bitcoin, and that's when it caught my attention again. I hadn't seen the up to 1,000. I didn't see any of those market, like I didn't really pay close attention. Like I had heard mumbles and grumbles, but I didn't really care at all. I was like, oh, it's at 1,000. I didn't even know. I thought it was at 1,000 earlier. Like I don't even know what it was. And so I started seeing it at like 5,000, 6,000, and projections for 100,000. And it got my attention right around like October last year. And so I started getting into it. You know, I bought Bitcoin, and then I heard about XRP. And right when I heard about XRP, I was like, okay, this is the one. Cause like I was starting to see like the fundamentals of Bitcoin and actually going to buy it. And I was like, okay, this is kind of cumbersome and like annoying and like all that. And then I hear XRP and like, this is, you know, and I'm trying to understand where the value is coming from with Bitcoin. I'm like, okay, what's going to give this value? Like, what is really going to make people use it? Because in my opinion, I don't think most people even will ever understand why paper money, fiat money sucks and the problems with it. So that was really where I was trying to understand it at the very beginning when I first got in, like, trying to justify, like, how is Bitcoin going to be the one? And then I saw XRP, and, you know, got into the altcoin thing, realized that those have a higher ROI potential at that point. So I started, you know, investing in a bunch of shit coins like BAT, TNT, like whatever. Like I was just buying, like I would do like a little basic TA, and then like go in and like think one was going to the moon, I'd go for it. And, you know, that ended poorly. Like I was an amateur. I didn't sell at the top, all that.
Sure.
Anyways, you know, my portfolio went to shit, and then had maybe, you know, yeah, it was probably worth like, you know, like most people, like 5% of what it was at the peak of 2018. And so I came into this year, and I see Bitcoin's, you know, at its bottom, what I thought was its bottom at 6,000. And yeah, just started doing more research. I started thinking maybe about buying into Bitcoin because I thought it would go to 100K. So I was like, okay, that seems like a good investment. And then once again, the more research I began doing into the market and like different investment ideas, I was just led back to XRP. There's a big social media community for XRP, so there's a lot of content to go over. So eventually led me back to that, and now it's pretty much just what I hold you know, I'm not trying to diversify. Like if you heard Warren Buffett, you know, like don't diversify, just stick with one thing. I'm putting all my eggs in the XRP basket. So I'm not, you know, the most unbiased source for information, but
sure.
But yeah, I mean, I did it for a reason, and I did it for research. Basically, I've done a lot of research. I have nothing but time. I really have a lot of time on my hands, to be frank. So I do a lot of research. Yeah, so that's about it.
Cool. How about you, Nabil?
Yeah, so I'm a day trader. I've been trading the currency market, some commodities as well, since maybe 2014. I wasn't very good at that time, but I was working my way through. I actually opened a trading firm before I knew how to trade, with another colleague of mine that knows about this. But yeah, so once I heard about Bitcoin, I think it was in 2015, and I threw money at cryptocurrencies without knowing what they were, and the performance that they had, like how they gained slowly made me interested into it. So I went into the fundamentals. I researched it a lot. XRP Pirate mentioned this, but a lot of people do not understand how the monetary system works right now.
Right.
And Bitcoin was created because of that monetary system. So to fully understand the value of Bitcoin, it's going to be hard, man, because I don't think the mass is really educated about how the monetary system works at the moment.
Yeah.
So I was looking into Bitcoin too, and I'm like, okay, yeah, this is cool. I mean, people can use it, and I know it could just become trendy at a point where people use it without really fully understanding it. But for people to really invest into that, I'm a little skeptical. I know the elite, a lot of people will understand it, but then again, if not everyone invests in it because they don't fully understand it, I was like in a kind of a gray zone there. When I looked into Ripple, Ethereum, and some other tokens, well, Ripple, I was like, okay, this is something that's really cool. I understand how it could be used. I understand who's going to use it. I understand the amount of money that was going to flow into it, in my opinion. So far, because I got in a little early, I was happy with it. During last year's crazy bull run, I got out some, not as much as I'd like from away from it. I had people that I got into crypto a few weeks before that messaged me and saying, oh, you should buy this, you should buy that. It's going to do 10x, it's going to do 5x. And I was just wondering, I'm like, do you guys even understand what 10x is? Like, and they were giving me timelines like, oh, in a month you'll do 10x. I'm like, okay, fine. But I looked into Ripple a lot. I understand all the misconceptions about Ripple, how people perceive it, and I understand all the knocks on Ripple. They're not going to use the XRP token. It's a bank's coin. Yeah, it is. There's still money flowing into it. It's not decentralized. 100% agree. Not everyone is pro decentralization. Some people are pro profit, and they'll go towards Ripple, in my opinion.
Sure.
More so, what else? If Ripple Labs stops working, XRP is useless. I agree. But then again, is that really going to happen? It's like saying Amazon stops operation. Of course, their stock's going to go to zero. But does that mean that their stock has no value? So I look at it at a different perspective, and I try to look at all the angles.
Yeah.
From my analysis, I think it's a pretty good token. It's a good project. It's a good company. You did mention earlier before we start recording, I think, you don't know much about the tech. Well, I don't either, to be honest. All I could do is do my research recently, and their chief cryptographer is David Schwartz. I did some digging into him, and David Schwartz is actually someone, his reputation is his net worth.
Solid reputation.
Yeah, especially for this one.
Yeah,
he's very, very, very respected. And whatever when it comes to their blockchain, it's a private blockchain, yes, but their blockchain, their technology, he's behind it. And for him to actually be part of that project and work with Ripple Labs, yeah, he's the chief cryptographer, head developer, exactly. For him to be part of it, for me, it tips the scale towards trusting their project and trusting that they're going to use XRP going forward as well. So that's a big plus for me.
Got it. Okay, cool. So what are you guys? Okay, so what are you guys' stance on? Well, I kind of got yours, Nabil. If you want to repeat it though, on Bitcoin, are you guys more pro Ripple, anti Bitcoin? What is your stance on that?
So from a, like from just the idea behind Bitcoin, like I'm all for that. Like that's all great. I like the libertarian ideals of no banks, and if it's truly decentralized, like I'm not a big technology guy either. Like I don't understand all the logistics of mining, but and like if Lightning Network, if maybe transactions will be quicker, whatever. But I like that. I like the idea of decentralization. But in terms of an investment, I'm just not confident enough. I don't think that there's a high enough probability of it going to, like, say 100,000. Like a lot of people treat that like it's like kind of like a certainty, and I don't necessarily think that that's so certain. Like an idea I've seen thrown out there even today, I don't know if you guys see that guy Kryptonary, but he was talking about like how when the futures open in 2019, he thinks that might be the end of Bitcoin, because so many people are going to short it. It's going to basically manipulate the market, and maybe it's going to hit below 1,000 or whatever, and maybe that could be the takeoff point where everyone finally capitulates and it goes back. And that could very well be the case, and I hope for a lot of people's investment sake it is the case, and it's a good technology. But that's basically my standpoint, is that I wouldn't, as an investor, I wouldn't invest in Bitcoin. I would rather take my money and put it into an XRP, which I feel has a higher likelihood of being successful. It's like a higher certainty. Basically, we see American Express partnering with them. They do like their little thing in they're doing that with the UK with American Express, and then who is it? The UAE exchange is working, taking what is it called? Remissions into Asia. So from around the world, they have places around the world, and they're now taking money into Asia using not XRapid yet. It's the one before that. But
Current.
Yeah, Xcurrent. Yeah. So they're just doing the bank to bank, like transfer, like communication, like real time communication, basically. I don't understand the technology again. But nonetheless, I think that has a higher likelihood.
Okay.
If I may, if I have to talk about Bitcoin, I'm fully for it in terms of values. So my morals inside of me want Bitcoin to thrive, and I actually think it will. I don't think one's going to take over the other and we're just going to have like a winner takes all. That's not my opinion. I think there's going to be a coexistence between a lot of tokens, a lot of cryptos. So that's my mindset. But if I look at how the market has moved previously, at the moment right now, I have no Bitcoin. The reason being, every time Bitcoin moves 5%, Ripple, Ethereum, and some of the other tokens that I hold, they'll move 7%, 8%. So for me as an investor, what's important is really ROI, right? I want a better return on my investment. And for that reason, I mean, Chris was doing a TA earlier. I'm a day trader as well. I don't even trade Bitcoin itself, but I look at Bitcoin because it leads the market, as you mentioned. So I look at all these patterns in Bitcoin, but if I want to do a buy, I'll buy Ethereum because I think it has a likelihood of giving me a few more percentages. The movement and the volatility on Ripple, Ethereum, and these other tokens are a little higher. And even as an investor that's looking long-term, I see Ripple having a better return on investment. So I'm not against Bitcoin. My values are for Bitcoin, but I mean, at the end of the day, I'm trying to make money, right? So for that reason, I'm going towards Ripple. I think in the next 3 years, Ripple will have a better return on investment than Bitcoin. So I'm not against Bitcoin. I believe in this coexistence and everything, but Ripple is a great project in my opinion. And yeah, I like it as well.
What do you see a price in like 3 years from now, let's say, for XRP? What would you think it's going to be worth? Because I hear some outlandish claims, right? And like a lot of people don't understand like what the coin supply means, and they don't really do the math on it. So I'd like to hear your opinion on a realistic price in 2-3 years from now for XRP.
So regarding that, the coin, the circulating supply, basically, so since so much of it is locked up in escrow, right? You hear 100 billion. Well, right now 55 billion is in escrow, 40 billion in circulation, maybe 45 billion in circulation or so, and then there's like 6.8 billion or so held by Ripple Company. So that's good. They have some skin in the game, in my opinion. But regarding the circulating supply, so currently the circulating supply, it's basically perfect the way that they've set it up, because so long as it goes according to plan, in order to have very good liquidity, you need a very high price. If you're moving $1 million and XRP is $1, you need to buy 1 million XRP from an exchange. And you also need to sell 1 million XRP on the other side, the way that XRapid works. So if XRP is $500 and you have to buy a fraction of that XRP, it's much easier to move. I don't know, I can't do the math in my head, whatever, 1,000 XRP, or 10,000 XRP than 1 million. So that's where the price, where you hear these outlandish prices come in. And David Schwartz has actually come forward and, talked about openly that a high price is required and is going to be basically necessary for the thing to work the way that they want it to. Because these banks are going to be moving, billions. And basically the whole other aspect is this is going to be another economic stimulus by releasing funds from these Vostro and Nostro accounts when they implement XRapid. So now there's going to be trillions of dollars released into the economy. We're already moving, billions, whatever a day. There's estimated to be like 23 trillion locked up in escrows. So once that's unleashed in the economy, imagine the transaction volume that's going to be taking place. It's even today with Swift, there's crazy transactions taking place, right? So imagine if it's lubricated, and this is basically the theory that they pose, is that when you lubricate these transactions and make it just a little bit easier, you see massive spikes in use of the system. So basically that's saying that you're going to need a lot of liquidity, and the higher the price, the easier the liquidity. So that's basically the answer for that.
Nabil, what do you think about that? Like, I agree. I'm just like, where's all this money gonna, like, a lot of money has to go into XRP for it to be $500 because of the amount.
It comes from all the governments and banks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the plan.
Sorry, I laughed, man. I highly doubt we're going to see even $100 XRP. I just don't see it. You're talking about a market cap that's just humongous.
The market cap has nothing to do with the market, dude. It has nothing to do with the price. Like that's you just go. I mean, look it up on YouTube, my man. Like,
well, that's the problem.
Market cap is not directly related to price,
and
it just makes me laugh, and like it's like funny to hear that consistently, but it's just not the truth. So it's just funny.
But, well, here's the first thing. Let me put a disclaimer. For anyone who's watching this video, please don't take anything we say as financial advice. This is just a discussion for entertainment purposes. Secondly, I wouldn't even say look it up on YouTube. As a matter of fact, I actually tell people when you come to our channels, fact check everything we talk about because, you know, we could be sincerely wrong. And I think we're actually some of the most honest guys on YouTube because I think most of these guys on YouTube are full of shit. You know what I mean? So.
Sure.
So you get these guys who are going to say these price predictions and going to say certain things because a lot of these things are clickbait. Not to get off a topic, but here's my stance on this. With Nabil, I definitely agree, man. I think there is, and I've said this on previous videos. Like I think there's a video on my channel where we do these coin videos and they're kind of entertaining where we educate the audience on different projects and I give my opinion at the end. And my opinion is I think Ripple is here to stay. But in terms of, so I think investing, the number one rule to investing, and this is what Warren Buffett said and all the famous investors say, is don't lose your capital. You know, don't lose your seed capital, right? So not to say you'd lose your seed capital, but I just think there's more risk to any of these altcoins outside of Bitcoin, including Ripple, because they are tied to Bitcoin and Bitcoin's a mothership of the market. And secondly, the problem, so the reason why I would touch Ripple just to trade, don't get me wrong. But in terms of like a store of value where I think that's where the utility is in Bitcoin, in terms of like long-term growth and playing it safe and getting a good return on my investment as an average retail investor, and do not take this as investment advice, I think the safe bet is Bitcoin. And the reason why I say that is because in the equation of the transaction, it is the only decentralized blockchain that's truly decentralized in the market. Now I know people say, oh, well, the mining is consolidating to corporations, but I would really tell people go read the Bitcoin standard and really go study why everyone got into this space in the first place. They got into this space because the people got in the past several years is mainly out of greed and want to make money, and I get it. We all that's pretty much the same story across the board. But I'm talking about the ones who really started the space and pioneered it with Bitcoin and evangelizing Bitcoin since 2010 was because we saw what happened in 2008. And, I believe that's a speed bump on the way to the show. And I believe the next collapse is going to be way worse than 2008. Now, when it's going to happen, who knows? But the point is that with Bitcoin, you actually have now sovereignty over your own wealth. And if you memorize your 12 or 24 keyword phrase, I mean, you can just cross borders with your wealth without anyone knowing. And you can transact and you can send value across borders to anyone in the world within minutes. Sure, it's not as fast as Ripple, and there's always a risk reward trade-off, right? So if you want scale, then you have to, the trade-off is you're not going to have a decentralized quote unquote cryptocurrency. And now you have human beings that are running that ecosystem. In this case, which is Ripple. Again, I'm not saying Ripple won't make you money. I don't know. I think it's going to be around for years because you have a lot of corporate money and banks, that are backing Ripple. And this is why I said I think these guys are amazing at business development. And that's why I think they're going to be around for a long time. But in terms of like, for me, my personal preference as an investor, because my risk tolerance is not very high. And I think that probably goes for most people who watch this show. I could be wrong though, but I think the safe bet is Bitcoin, even long-term. I think there's a higher probability of getting a safer ROI with Bitcoin than any other altcoin because it's the only truly trustless, decentralized blockchain. Even if you were to, even if the miners were to consolidate into like huge mining pools, for them to even 51% attack Bitcoin would make no sense. They would cannibalize their entire wealth and resources because you have to spend money to mine essentially, right? So to validate these transactions. And if you don't, you basically screwed yourself. So this guy, Satoshi, or this group, Satoshi Nakamoto, or this woman, whoever it was, just created probably the greatest invention in computer science since the internet. So whereas the argument, and I'm not against Ripple, I'm just saying that I think there's more of a systematic risk because it's not decentralized. It is centralized. Therefore, I wouldn't want, and I'm not saying you're going to lose money, Ripple. I'm not commenting on that. I'm just saying for me personally, the safe bet is I would rather hold my money in Bitcoin because I think the utility with Bitcoin is being a store of value. And if we want to compare it to other asset classes that are a store of value, look at gold. It's a $7 trillion market. Bitcoin right now is barely hovering at 60 billion. There's so much more upside. Whereas when you're talking about a payment network, I don't know how much is transacting on Swift. I'm sure it's in the trillions. I'm not saying that Ripple couldn't get to a multi-trillion-dollar market cap. It probably could. I have no idea. But I don't understand the tech. It's ran by a company, and I don't know what the risk is to the tech. Meaning, like, can hackers come in and break that blockchain? Is there a possibility? I don't know. You know what I mean? But the fact that it is centralized, there is a central point of failure. That is a possibility. Whereas with Bitcoin, there is no central point of failure.
I just want to make note that,
you know what I mean. So I mean, just throwing out my argument, my points. But this is why. I mean, there's many points we can make. You know, and please, anyone else chime in. But this is why I believe Bitcoin dominance is actually going to increase in the coming years, and I think fundamentals will win in the long run. Not to say there's a place in this world for Ripple. Don't get me wrong. I think 96% plus of these altcoins are going to die.
I just think referring to it as centralized as a certainty is not true. So the company comes out, David Schwartz, right, comes out and calls it decentralized, right? It's decentralized through the nodes and through the consent. Well, I know. And so that's what I'm saying. And so, like, your word versus David Schwartz, I will listen to David Schwartz, right?
Oh, no,
so,
I'm not saying you got to listen to me, but I'm just saying.
No, I'm just saying that you're talking about it like centralization is a certainty. You keep saying Ripple is centralized. This is where it's flawed. It is centralized. It's not centralized. And because you think it is.
That is. How do you know?
Because, okay, so first, it's in an escrow. So the escrow in and of itself carries a majority, or it's multiple different escrows. And it's set up by, like, with smart contracts that are released under certain conditions. And this is programmed into the software, right? So it's not going to be, you can't hack it. It's based on consensus. So all the nodes need to consent, and they need to both all agree on the, same idea. There needs to be a majority vote, basically. That's how the network consensus works versus proof of work. And so if it's all in an escrow set up by smart contracts to be released, it's basically predetermined and extremely transparent, which is decentralization effectively. That's all that you care about with decentralization, is to understand that it's not going to be, there's not going to be more created, it's not going to be manipulated. This guarantees that it can't be manipulated. The most manipulation that can effectively take place because of the smart contracts and escrow. And to argue, you could say, well, how do we know that we need to see the data, like, in the source code, like, we need to know that it will be released like that. Like, you can do that, and that's fine. I will take his word for it, right? I'll take David Schwartz's word for it when he's, at these conferences at Ripple Swell, and they're discussing with, the IMF, they're talking with, industry leaders in fintech. I'll take their word for it that they're not lying to all these people's faces, and that the people behind the scenes are kind of, have a greater understanding than what they can actually give out to the people, which is typically the case.
Bernie Madoff has a really good reputation also, though. Right?
I'm saying, like, you're trusting a guy. Of course he's going to say anything, any propaganda he's going to spend. I'm not saying he's lying. Okay. I don't know the guy.
That's what you are saying. You're saying it's propaganda.
No, what I am saying is that there's still a central point of failure, and it's ran by a company. And you say, well, no, there's a bunch of these master nodes and they have smart contracts. Well, yeah,
If,
but
if
it's still overseen by human beings, as
it's
far as
not,
I
if
know. And I
Ripple,
could be totally wrong.
if Ripple company shut down tomorrow, XRP still exists. It's a open source platform. It's an ecosystem that I own XRP. We all own XRP. And so long as we own it and there's like 2 people who own it, there's a network. And that's all that it takes for it to not die. And that's basically, the same with any crypto. But, I'm just saying that it's not tied to Ripple Labs. Okay. Like it's not. Ripple Labs is a company that utilizes the digital asset XRP, and the creators of XRP gifted it to Ripple, which that is definitely weird. And like, there's definitely some weird, shady shit with that, where it's just like David Schwartz and this other guy who ran off and disappeared, similar to Satoshi, just gifted 6 billion XRP. But, and I heard that there was like some weird thing where people could come and claim it. So I don't know the beginning phases of that, open coin and all that. But nonetheless, I just think that it's dishonest to call it centralized when that's like, central with certainty, when the narrative, the public narrative that the software maker, comes forth with is the opposite of that. So it's, just for the viewers, you say it's centralized with certainty. It's not centralized with certainty. There's a huge amount of evidence to say that it's not centralized. So I just wanted to make that point.
If I made this point,
sure, go for it.
At the moment, I believe XRP is centralized because at the stage they are right now, they are distributing the function to nodes. They still own the majority of the functions for the distribution. Right. So for the function, they are distributing at the moment, but as long as they have the majority of the nodes working for them, it's not fully decentralized, but they're working towards it. Now, at the same time, we have to maybe break down what fully decentralized is. I understand Bitcoin is 100% decentralized, and XRP will distribute enough function besides just the nodes, so that people can trust into it, not so that people have full control of it, or the network has full control of it, or Ripple app has full control of it. They want to put it out there, so it's, hey, we have a deal. You'll have this much control. I'll have this much control. They'll have this much control, and all this is going to work. So it's not in no one's incentive to try to screw the other person. You were talking about the 51% attack. If someone would want to attack the Bitcoin network, they'd have to put crazy amounts in infrastructure, computing power, energy, etc. All for what? To create something that is rewarded with the full functionality of the network.
Right.
So you can compare that to Ripple to a certain point. They are decentralizing some of the functions that people will trust into them. And if we go back to talking who's going to buy into Ripple, we can crunch some numbers. Swift has $1.5 or $1.6 trillion a year in transfer revenues per year. That's huge. Now, XRP is saying, well, we have this network, we have this token, and we have this private blockchain, that's going to come and bring a way cheaper solution, way faster solution. They're telling banks, all we have to do is we plug something because it's a code box that you guys already have. Yeah. There's no big investment or anything, right? We just switch you over. It's going to be way cheaper, way faster. Why not do it? They're telling banks, you guys still have dial-up internet. This is high-speed internet.
No, and I'm not arguing with that. I totally get that. I'm just saying my debate topic is, for me personally, I think it's safer to own Bitcoin. And I think the upside the long term when I'm talking about, the time frame I'm talking about, is the next like multi-decades. You know what I mean? So in terms of store value, I think Bitcoin's going to be an emerging asset class, and it's going to suck up capital from multiple asset classes, including gold and real estate. But that's just my opinion. I mean, who the hell knows, right? So, and I'm not saying there's no place in this world Ripple. I think Ripple will be around. And I think Ripple has a possibility of being having a multi-trillion dollar market cap. I'm not sure about a $500 Ripple, but I think it has that possibility of doing what you guys are talking about. I'm just saying, in terms of me holding my purchasing power and my wealth, I think it's safer by far to hold it in Bitcoin. Now, if Ripple eventually does truly become decentralized, that's a conversation people can revisit down the line. But I wouldn't trust anyone from a company saying, hey, we're going to be we're doing this and that, and we're going to be decentralized, and anyone on YouTube saying these things, because, you know, people are going to try to push a certain agenda to meet that end result that they want, right? So, you know, the point is like, I don't really trust people too much, and that's why I trust Bitcoin far more than any other cryptocurrency.
I'm going to add 2 points really quickly, if I may, because the very first question that we got kind of distracted from is the Wolf asked me, what is my prediction for Bitcoin in 3 years? For Ripple, pardon me. I hate price predictions. I absolutely hate price predictions, especially with people that say this much and this time.
Right.
You have to follow the market. It's a story. So these people on Instagram that are on YouTube are saying it's going to go to this much or this much without giving like arguments behind it. Is just an opinion, and there's a difference between an opinion and analysis. Analysis is backed by data, by facts, etc., etc.
There you go.
So me personally, I want to see XRP at $10. It's an exit for me. Can it go more? Absolutely, I believe it could go more, but I mean, you just have to be satisfied where don't try to get the full move. You need like chunks of moves. So I'm not going to make a price prediction, because the biggest lack in the space right now is knowledge. People do not understand cryptocurrencies as much as I'd like them to.
Yeah.
Because, and I mean, yeah. And the second thing, I also dislike the comparison between Bitcoin and Ripple. It's very different. It's Bitcoin is like digital gold. I fully agree. And if you want to look at the very long longevity, if Bitcoin thrives in the next 3 to 5 years, I think Bitcoin is going to stay around for the next 100 years.
I agree.
It's going to stay. So I mentioned earlier that I like XRP because I think it has a better return on investment in the next 3 to 5 years. That's my opinion. Based on the analysis of every time Bitcoin moves 5%, XRP will move 7 or 8. And if we've noticed it with other altcoins, it's the current market structure. That's how the market making is currently structured right now. So I look at that and I say, you know what, I'm going to go into XRP and some other alts because I want the better return on investment, because I'm an investor.
There you go.
At that part of the game. So yeah, they serve a different purpose. And I believe in an ecosystem where there's going to be a lot of alts, not 1,500. I think, like you said, 96% of them are going to die, most likely. Yeah. But they're going to be at least 20 to 50, I think. They're going to have a purpose. And yeah, but Bitcoin is digital gold. I fully agree. If Bitcoin survives the next 5 years, I think it will. And 100 years, Bitcoin will be around. I understand the XRP might not be the same. It still needs further development. But at the moment, at the current stage of XRP in the financial landscape, XRP is amazing in my opinion.
Okay, fair enough. You made some good arguments. How about you guys? What are your guys' thoughts? I know Dan had to leave because he had another call to get on. What are your guys' thoughts with everything that Travis?
For me, it's like I was following along with the conversation to understand what exactly we're debating. Because again, I'm an investor. Nabil, him and I share similar mindsets, and like this whole past month, even maybe the past 2 months, I was exclusively trading Ripple just because the percentages were way, way, way higher than anything else that I was. I mean, Bitcoin, like you said, would move 3-4%. I would short Ripple and catch a 10% move. So in terms of an investing standpoint, I'm not gonna marry any coin. 2017, I was trading fucking Bitbean. Like, what the hell is Bitbean, right? Like, it made money, right? I mean,
yeah.
If we're talking about fundamentals, I mean, I would consider myself a Bitcoin maximalist. I in terms of long-term growth and long-term, I don't know, how do I explain it? Just longevity and preservation of wealth, I would put my money in that versus anything else.
Right.
Right now, we're seeing things evolve. We have to keep in mind, come back and put things in perspective. We're at the beginning stages, if you will. Like we don't know. I mean, I don't want to really brashly make the comparison of the .com bubble, but like there was pets.com, there was just anything.com that doesn't exist anymore. After a long time has passed, right? So the Amazon, the Googles, they stayed, they persevered. So, I mean, obviously at this point, it seems like everyone's just throwing an opinion, and obviously everyone's entitled to their opinion. A lot of people are married to a certain coin. I do believe that a lot of people got burned 2017. Like, I mean, you had people in Thanksgiving opening 300,000 Coinbase accounts that are buying Bitcoin $17,000, $18,000. I'm pretty damn sure these retail investors won't touch Bitcoin again. They got burned very bad.
It was the number one downloaded app at one point in the iOS App Store. You know what I mean? So it was, I think, the number one free downloaded app for like a few days, and that's
right. You mentioned it though, Hamid. You said, you know, people got into this space out of greed. Like, man, how many people burned. Just like baristas at Starbucks, your Uber drivers, everyone was talking about Bitcoin. Like, that's when you need to get the hell out, right? Like, as an investor, okay, you want to have the hodl mindset? Sure, go ahead. Buy at 17,000. Wait, I don't know how long it's going to take to get back there.
Yeah.
If that's your thing, cool. But again, education, having kind of the investing mindset. When everyone's talking about you want to get out, I mentioned this last time, you have to, you know, use stop losses, right? Like, I'm sure not everyone's a trader, but, you know, if you want to protect your capital, I mean, in terms of preservation of capital is everything. So
for sure.
That's my
and just to add to that,
sure.
So it just depends on what is it you want, right? So for someone like me, my risk tolerance is not very high. I'm not a day trader. If I was going to hold a coin for the next 5 to 10 years, 20 years, and I want to preserve my wealth, for me personally, based on everything that I know, I would own Bitcoin. But I'm not against Ripple. Just make that very clear. I think they're actually here to stay. You know, I think most of these altcoins will die, but I think these guys, Brad Garlinghouse, the Ripple and the team, they do a great job, man, with business development. Ripple Labs has been around since 2004, actually. They've been around since 2004. As a matter of fact, I think they were started by Jed Caleb and this other guy, I forgot his name, man. And he gave up his CEO position to Brad Garlinghouse like a few years back. Forgot his name. But yeah, they've been around for quite some time. They're actually the oldest company in this cryptocurrency space. They've been around 5 years longer than Bitcoin. Not XRP though. XRP's been around for about, I believe, 7 years now. Or I'm going on 8 years. So I think, and I've always said, you know, I don't think we're going to see this completely decentralized utopia. Banks are here to stay. They're not going anywhere. They're just going to morph into something else. And I think Ripple will help them do that. You know what I mean? So that's why I don't think Ripple is going anywhere. I'm just saying, my argument is, if I'm playing, if I'm conservative and I want something that has way less systematic risk. And this is me sitting on the sidelines at a glance. None of us are blockchain engineers, you know, so it's really hard to make a judgment on the code. But just based off of what I do know, I would say the safer bet is Bitcoin. Plus, it's more decentralized, and there's just a lot more a bigger community, bigger developer community, hell of a more market sentiment behind Bitcoin. But that doesn't mean there's not a place in this world for Ripple. And as a matter of fact, I think Ripple will do pretty well in the coming years, and I think they're here to stay. Or XRP, that is. So that's my position. I want to make that very clear. I'm not. This isn't like a Bitcoin maximalist versus a Ripple maximalist debate.
Right.
This is just a conversation, and this is just my opinion. But yeah, what are you guys' thoughts?
One thought I just wanted to just throw out there, just for the last 2 cents on regarding really just Bitcoin as a store of value similar to gold. That was my perception when I got back into the market, and I was like, oh, sick. It's just like, that's literally what it is. It's literally digital gold. And it finally clicked with me. I was like, oh, I understand digital gold. Like, it took me a little bit, but I understand it. And one thing that, kind of goes back to people's understanding. I think that's where the value of gold comes from, is people agree like gold is nice. It's pretty. Like, we like to make jewelry with it, whatever. Like, we all like gold. But today, there's this guy, Mark Dice. You can look up on YouTube. He's kind of crazy, but he does these videos where he goes out and he's like, hey, you want a Snickers bar or do you want 10 ounces of silver?
Oh yeah,
and
I saw that.
Most people will pick the Snickers bar. And I think that's exactly what we might see with the whole Bitcoin situation in terms of being like gold. Is today you go out and, you know, maybe gold, they would take it because it's gold, but, you know, they don't understand the value of precious metal versus a dollar. And so I think that's a necessary barrier that we have to break through, like for the majority of populace to see the value of Bitcoin. And until you have that like unanimous agreement that it's just like gold, the same way that we agree like 24 karat gold, like that's not like we'll all take it for $1,500, whatever the price is, you know what I mean? Until you can take your Bitcoin and go to literally anyone in the world and go, hey, I want this bit. Like, I don't think we'll have that. You know what I mean? You can't quite compare it to gold, or you can, but I don't think it'll match the way that gold acts in the market. So that's really where I was conflicted when I came to that conclusion when I got back in during this little bottom out at 6,000 around, you know, October or whatever. Thought it was like gold, but then I thought about that, and yeah, and so that was it.
Well, it's better than gold if you think about it, because like you said, people just give value to gold for how it looks, it's rare, etc. But I mean, at the end of the day, the uses of gold, what can you do with gold is not as much as you could do with Bitcoin. Bitcoin, people think it's just a currency. It's not. It's a whole system. It's a network. It's a protocol, and it's a currency.
Right.
And I like the fundamentals of Bitcoins. I'm all for it, man. I'm never going to go against it because that would just speak of my lack of knowledge towards it. Right. Bitcoin's complete system is great, but again, you just have to know like whose shoes are you wearing. I'm an investor. I've said it again. I'm not going to repeat it, right? But I fully understand your point of view going on 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. I mean, it's different. People have to be knowledgeable about what they invest in. I don't like making price predictions. The only investment advice I give is, hey, invest in your knowledge, man. Invest in it, because at the end of the day, after that, whenever you invest your money, you're fully confident to that. I'm just going to take a wild guess here. XRP Pirate, are you 100% Ripple? That's all you hold?
No, I hold a couple other things. Like I hold like a little bit of ARC, a little bit of IOTA, but nothing like negligible amounts. You know what I mean? Just amounts that I had left over from the previous run that I just didn't sell off at the low price.
But the majority of your
everything that I put in to the market, I bought a little bit of MCO because that app is actually pretty sick. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but the crypto.com, they're coming out with
Monaco?
Monaco.
Monaco? Gotcha.
Yeah, Monaco. They're coming out with the little Visa cards. So I did get a little bit of that, so I could do like a little upgrade since it bottomed at like 160 or something. I'm gonna call it the bottom. It was like 160, and that thing was at like 20 just on the announcement. So, you know, and basically, I don't know if you guys know how that works, but basically you have to buy it and lock it up for 6 months. So it like basically forces you to hold it. So I mean, I'm looking out 6 months. I think it's gonna be looking pretty good. They just released cards in Singapore, and United States is next, and then Europe after that. So once they're out all the way in Europe, I mean, I think Monaco is going to be really good. But I'm just looking forward to the Visa card coming out in the United States. But yeah, that's it. Just XRP, Monaco, negligible amounts of IOTA. That's about it.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't have faith in any of the other coins. Like even Ethereum, I think is going to go down. Bitcoin, I definitely think like if anyone, it definitely would be Bitcoin in my opinion. But even Bitcoin, I'm having doubts with. You know, like I can't fully confidently say 100%, you know, or like, you know, 99%, you can never say anything 100%, but I can't even say like, you know, a lot, like more of me thinks that Bitcoin is going to go down than up at this point. So, and even with every coin, I think most coins are going to just vanish.
Well,
I haven't looked into that many, honestly.
Bitcoin could really just die because if someone wants it to die, I don't see Bitcoin dying, or because, I mean, I said before, it's a big threat to the monetary system status quo. And at this point, because of what it's valued at, if someone would come and just buy all the coins they'd want and just leave it there without creating a network that could work towards killing Bitcoin, I mean, I don't see Bitcoin dying. I don't see Bitcoin dying unless someone really, really puts in the effort to kill it. Because fundamentally, Bitcoin is just great, you know?
Yeah, you would need more computing power than I think exists to kill Bitcoin. It's already beyond that threshold. That's what I'm saying. Like,
you could do it in money.
Maybe, but here's how maybe you could do it is if the price drops way below $1,000 and it just stays there, then it could possibly collapse the mining industry, and then miners just start shutting off their miners one by one, and that maybe would then kill Bitcoin, possibly. I just highly doubt it. There's just too much too much of a network effect. There's too much corporate money now behind Bitcoin. There's so many products coming out. There's more futures exchanges such as Bakkt hitting the market next month. Fidelity, TD Ameritrade, they're giving exposure to their accredited investors in the coming months. There's just too much corporate money behind Bitcoin now for it to die, but more so there's too much of a network effect. It's too much, there's just too much energy behind it is what I'm saying.
I'm not saying it will happen.
Yeah.
I'm saying it's possible. It's very unlikely. I'm just going to clear that out. It's extremely unlikely. But I want to give you an example. Let's say in 2011, Bitcoin was worth like 1 cent, I think.
Yeah, back then it was for sure could have been killed off.
Okay. Yeah, exactly. Well, you see, back then it was so cheap that honestly, I think all of us together, if we put in some money, we could probably buy most of what was created and just kind of kill the system.
For sure.
Today, because of what Bitcoin is valued at, even if they wanted to, they could in that same regard, because there's enough money. They could just print enough money and buy all the Bitcoins.
Sure.
I mean, it's very unlikely because you mentioned back the physical gold, you mentioned Fidelity and all these financial doorways opening up for the investors.
Where the smart money's going. Right.
Yeah, I agree. I'm just saying, I want to say it again, it's unlikely that happens, but the chance that it's possible, even if it's under like 1%.
No, I agree. No, we're on the same page. I agree with you 100%. But I share the same sentiment. I think it's highly, highly unlikely.
Yeah.
Just got to see where the smart money is going. And it's all going into Bitcoin mainly. And then, the cryptocurrency market, as well. And I put Ripple into that basket as well. But yeah, no, but I would say this, I think we are probably going lower. I just don't know when. My guess is just a guess. I'm just guessing sometime in Q1, but I don't think we'll stay there much longer. But I think we could be in a sideways market for the next year. That's just my opinion. But like you said, it's an ongoing story. You got to just keep, paying attention to the market, see what the market tells you. Go ahead, Franz. What are you saying?
Sure. One thing I see potentially happening is just the continuation of this bearish, market trend coming into when Bakkt and all these futures platforms open. And people seeing this bearish trend and just shorting the shit out of Bitcoin, and then it just hitting below the 1,000 mark, and then hopefully that's a capitulation, and then it fucking takes off again.
It's accumulating.
That's what my forecast is the bearish continuation down. A lot of people think like 2,000, 1,500, but whatever. People are going to look at the market and they're going to just short the shit out of it when futures opens. All the smart money, in my opinion. That's what I think.
What were you saying, Chris?
That's what I would do.
Oh, I'm just saying that if there's an agenda for all these platforms to come out, someone's going to know. I mean, there's inside information, right? Everyone's going to know when it's coming out and all that. So if there's an agenda and you have a forecast of what's happening in the next 2-3 months, and if you have big money, you got to think like them, right? You're going to accumulate as much as you can. So of course, if you've got, I see it all the time. There's huge walls that are pushing price down. You could essentially move markets if you have enough money. So push the price down, load up your bags, and then you already have the agenda of when all these platforms are going to open doors, and they're the ones that are going to profit the most. We're just going to ride the coattails, really.
Yeah. Keep in mind too, the Bitcoin halving is going to happen in May of 2020. That's where my theory is. And this is just a theory. And like you said, Nabil, it's an ongoing story, so we don't know. There's nothing is factual. That's just my theory is I think we're going to be in a sideways market up until sometime next year, sometime later next year. But I don't think it'll long-term. I think Bitcoin is going to do very well, and the entire crypto market, not the entire current crypto market, but a basket of coins will still do pretty well. And I agree. I think Ripple will be one of them. Now, I guess the whole conversation started with the IG post by Pete saying, "Tell me why Ripple's not a shit coin." So, and that's how we got into this whole conversation. But yeah, Pete, any what's your opinion on all this? Because we haven't heard much from you lately.
I'm a very big believer in Bitcoin long term. I don't know what the price is going to be next year or the year after, but I look at 10 years, 20 years from now, I believe it will always be king. I don't think any other cryptocurrency will prevail over Bitcoin. I believe there is going to be A coin like Ripple probably will be XRP. Ripple in the space that is going to be used by financial institutions to move money globally. So I'm not, I'm like I said, that post I said was just to get a reaction. I have done the research into Ripple as a company, into XRP. I do think they're here to stay. Don't believe in them morally. Obviously, I'm all about what Bitcoin is. I'm pretty much an anarchist, anti-establishment. Ripple is just completely against what I believe in. But I'm realistic and I like to make money. And I've been trading Ripple. And the first time I bought Ripple, it was like 1-2 cent. I've been buying Ripple for years, selling Ripple, trading Ripple, XRP, Stellar. So like, I like to make money. I make money on the moves that these currencies make. And I do believe when Bitcoin finally does bottom out, we're going to see XRP, XLM, and a few other coins outperform it next year. So short term to medium term, I will trade these coins to make money. But I have to agree with you, Hamid, like long term and to preserve my capital, it's going to be in Bitcoin and nothing else. But that's not to say that Ripple or XRP won't, have a number, being a top five spot for a long, long time. But again, I have more trust in Bitcoin as a store of value, and that's what I don't really care if we don't use Bitcoin to transact as microtransactions. I couldn't give a shit. The transaction fees could be $200 for all I care. As long as it's a store of value for me, that's all I care about. I really don't care about Lightning Network or any of these, off-chain or side-chain things they're doing. I just look at Bitcoin as a store of value. And I think there'll be other cryptocurrencies that will be used more for payments. I think XRP could be one of them for the big payments for the banks using for remittances. And I think maybe like something like XLM, for example, could be used for like mobile payments, stuff like that. So I'm not a complete maximalist, but I think it's Bitcoin or nothing else. I think there is room for other currencies in the space and they have a place in the space. But I am long Bitcoin long term. That's just my opinion.
For sure. Well, we're coming up on an hour, guys, so I think we should just end it here. Well, we got Pete's final thoughts. How about you guys, Travis and Nabil? What's your final thoughts on everything we talked about today? And guys, again, before you guys continue, again, guys, don't take anything we say as financial advice. Just make sure you do your own research. It's just a conversation. And we just want to share it with you guys on our channel. That's why we do these fireside chats every week. But don't take anything we say as the gospel, right? Always do your own research. And don't take anything anyone says on YouTube as financial advice or anywhere on the internet for that matter. And make sure you hit the like button as well so other people can find this video on all our channels. But with that being said, yeah, final thoughts from Travis and Nabil and of course, Chris, our resident trader here on the fireside chat. What are you guys' final thoughts on everything we talked about today?
Yeah, so it was just really, I'm sure like most of you, none of your, most of our peers aren't really so interested in this. So this was really nice to be able to like sit down and like actually have a discussion, like see the opposite perspective. So it was really nice. I appreciate you guys. Thank you for having me on your guys' show.
Yeah, definitely.
But beyond that, I just am really excited in general for the whole crypto. I think it's going to be exciting in 2019. I think with the whole stock market thing shifting and stocks, equities or whatever it's called, not seeing as much return, I think that's going to be good for our market. So I think we have an exciting year coming up, and that's really just my final thoughts. I'm just excited for 2019, and just that's like literally every day checking my phone. It's like, oh man, it's just exciting to see all the news coming out. It's cool. So that's it. Awesome.
All right. Well, yeah. As you mentioned, I think I'm just gonna say I believe that the cryptocurrency markets have a coexistence. I'm not a maximalist and nothing. I think they all serve a different purpose and they're all gonna be around as long as there's a use for it. So I see a crazy use for XRP in my opinion, a lot of use for Bitcoin as well. So I think they're both gonna coexist, and that's pretty much it. And you've mentioned before, this is not really investment advice at all. Don't take this, just invest into knowledge and, read a lot. It's pretty much
I just
it.
want to throw that out there too. Nothing I said, I never verbally said it. Nothing I said is investment advice. I don't want to get sued or anything like that. Just throw that out there.
Everyone's throwing in their disclaimer just to be safe.
Well, asterisk.
Shit, man, the SEC is hammering it down apparently on all these YouTube influencers from what I've been hearing through the grapevine. So, I mean, you definitely got to put up your disclaimers because they're not messing around
Not
here.
financial advice, guys, at all. Just opinions.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Go ahead, Chris.
Invest in knowledge.
Invest in knowledge is pretty much key. I mean, the thing is, I think we kind of brushed on it. I think the majority of people, they don't understand their monetary system to begin with. So I think that's probably first step. Before even reading into Bitcoin, you should really understand how the hell like your monetary system works. I said this last time. There's a book called The Creature of Jekyll Island.
Right.
It's amazing.
I just downloaded the audio book actually.
Great book.
Awesome. So it's like, yeah, I mean, if I was gonna just start, I'd start with that. Like if I didn't know, if I just assumed that my US dollar is still pegged with gold, read that book. Like just get an understanding of how your financial systems work. Then right after that, read the Bitcoin white paper, read the book you mentioned, Hamid.
The Bitcoin Standard,
Bitcoin Standard. Then kind of form your own opinion based on those 2-3 books, and I think a clearer picture will be painted for you. And then from then on, you can go on and talk about XRP or the crypto markets, or I think it starts at the core, I believe. So having a core understanding and the core foundation is going to be your safety net in the upcoming years, I believe.
Man, that's sound advice, man. Great stuff. Well, guys, thanks again. I'm going to stop the recording right now, but thanks again, guys, for joining us. Really appreciate you guys taking the time and sharing with us your thoughts on Ripple. And thanks to the audience for sticking around and watching and engaging with us. And again, leave a comment below on all our channels. Make sure you click the like button. And if you're brand new to any of our channels, just make sure you click the subscribe button and the bell button next to the subscribe button so you can be notified when we do upload new content to our channels. Everyone, have a great day.